Tonight, tropical cyclone Alfred just hours from making landfall, millions taking shelter on both sides of the border. Breaking news, a man missing in floodwaters. Plus, Ballina battered, trees uprooted in Byron and Lismore on the brink. Also tonight, a woman airlifted to hospital after a shark attack in Sydney South. Disturbing new details about a teenager who boarded a plane armed with a shotgun. Answers at last for residents in Prestons who've been living with the smell of petrol fumes in their homes. And we're live to Parramatta for Wayne Bennett's coaching return at the Rabbitohs.
This is 9 News with Georgie, Gardner.
Good evening. It's been an excruciating build-up, and now Tropical Cyclone Alfred is just hours from making landfall. The window to prepare has all but closed. As we go to air, the system's still tracking slowly as a Category 2 storm with 4.5 million people in its path. And Alfred's already wreaking havoc, causing widespread destruction on both sides of the border.
He's not even here yet, but Alfred's already knocked down the door.
We just heard the bang and that was it.
The owner stuck inside.
She was holding up the ceiling in her bed so it wouldn't cave in on her.
Like dominoes, one after the other, giant pines ripped from the ground. Debris flung across roads, while in the heart of Brisbane they were empty. No cars parked either, shopping centres abandoned. Surgeries cancelled, hospitals for emergencies only, staff sleeping on site.
We are very grateful for the fact that health service providers would be willing to do that.
For some, this is their first encounter with a cyclone, while others have done this dance before.
I can remember back to one called Bertha that come a long time ago. Oh, there you go. And the old house shook like that.
Neil Wilson moved to the Sunshine State 30 years ago from Canada.
Spent most of my life shoveling snow, now I'm shoveling sand.
Well, this will make you a real true Queenslander now.
Absolutely, correct.
Sandbags aren't the only staple running low.
Well, I know the majority of us have eaten all our snacks. They ran out yesterday, so we had to load up on that.
Lots of chocolates.
Alfred's delay delivering an unofficial public holiday for some.
The gist around here is like, well, where is it?
Hurry up, Alfie. I'm done.
Its final approach has Noosa down to Yamba in the firing line. 155-kilometre winds, 800 millimetres of rain forecast into the weekend. Moreton Island will feel it first early Saturday morning before the cyclone hits the coast just north of Brisbane at Redcliffe, possibly as a weakened Category 1. Come landfall, this is where the eye of the storm is expected to hit. The first tropical cyclone in the area in 50 years. Bringing in 120 extra sets of boots, the ADF deploying up and down the impact zone.
Door knocking as well as conducting welfare checks on vulnerable members of the community.
Storm surges feeding the angry ocean, 12.3 metre waves pumping the Gold Coast, keeping the surf off limits. 11 people already rescued from the water.
Can I please say, now's not the time to be in the surf.
Even the lifeguard tower needed saving, a digger dragging it off the crumbling sand. Those that couldn't resist the board carved up the grass.
It's been raining, so thought we'd make a mudslide.
Crawling out of the sand, turtle hatchlings born into the storm, but with a helping hand, they're finding their feet.
They get washed out at the bottom end of Moreton Island and they join Nemo and his friends in this East Australian current.
Alison Petrowski, 9 News.
Our key reporters are standing by in locations. First to Alison Petrowski at Redcliffe, north of Brisbane. And Ali, just when will Alfred arrive there?
Well, look, that is the question, Georgie. Good evening to you. As you heard there, so much frustration from locals. Initially, we were told that that weather system would make landfall first thing this morning. Then it was pushed back 24 hours to first thing tomorrow. Now, Georgie, the Bureau of Meteorology is advising that Cyclone Alfred will make landfall here on the mainland at 10 a.m. tomorrow, 10 o'clock, Georgie. Will that change? Quite possibly. None of these things are set in stone. There is no set timeline. But look, Queenslanders are still getting out and about, Georgie, enjoying their evening. I've got to say, a lot of dogs are currently being walked right now, Georgie. But look, Redcliffe residents need to make the most of this unofficial public holiday that the delay of Cyclone Alfred has gifted them, because it looks like it is going to be a pretty wild 24 hours ahead.
OK, Ali, thank you. Let's now go to North Stradbroke Island, where we find Claire Todhunter. And Claire, residents there are in lockdown.
Yeah, they are, Georgie, and that's in anticipation of wild winds that are expected to come through tonight in the lead up to Alfred arriving tomorrow morning. It will hit the islands before it does hit the mainland. We're warned we can expect destructive gusts of more than 130 kilometres an hour, as high as 150 kilometres an hour, and that's up to 3 times stronger than wild winds we already saw howling through here last night, bringing down street signs and trees as well and blocking major roads. That was a fair amount of damage already. You can only imagine what is still to come. So Redland City Council has issued an emergency warning to not only its mainland residents but island residents as well. They are told to take shelter as those destructive winds come through in a sturdy part of the house, whether that's the bathroom, a walk-in wardrobe or just the hallway as well, and warned they will expect to hear loud winds tonight and the sound of things breaking against their home.
Thank you, Claire. Davina Smith is on the Gold Coast. And Davina, you have breaking news.
Georgie, good evening. Yeah, the Gold Coast, the northern half has just been issued with that red alert to take shelter now. The real concern about these wind gusts that are starting to whip up. Gold Coast home to 700,000 people, and half of the people right now being told to stay at home. 45,000 homes right now without power as we go to air, and the storm hasn't even hit. And then there's the sea. It has been an extraordinary spectacle today. The erosion carving up the beach. And part of the problem is that so much has ended up in the ocean. Trees, including Lifeguard Tower 42, where we bring you live pictures from tonight. This is right opposite SeaWorld. It has slipped into the ocean. If you have a look, this is where it once stood on the top of the embankment here. It has slid 20 metres down towards the ocean, and there is no stopping these waves. They keep sweeping in, and there is no end in sight. And this is before the actual storm hits.
OK, Davina Smith, thank you. The New South Wales side of the border is also feeling the impact. Gale force winds and torrential rain threatening the far north coast. Major roads are cut off and thousands are without power. And a warning, it's just the beginning.
Ballina copping a battering. Torrential rain and monstrous winds whipping up rough seas, now too unsafe for surfers. But that didn't keep them off their boards. Residents along the river on edge as waters threaten properties. By 9 this morning, 90 millimetres had fallen. Some wildlife lapping it up. Locals forced to rescue an eel from a drain. This koala captured clinging to a tree. Winds more than 100 kilometres an hour lashed parts of the coast, ripping trees from the roots at Byron's beloved railway-friendly bar. Similar scenes at Kingscliff, where the winds were no match for the Woolies car park. Between fallen trees and flooding, roads were cut off, including the M1 from Bangalow to Kingscliff. The force of the winds no match for power lines at Tweed Heads.
In the Tweed area, there's a call out there to conserve water because the pumps have stopped pumping because no power.
More than 43,000 homes and businesses in the dark across the Northern Rivers region, including Ballina restaurant owner James Lee.
We're still out here and we've all our freezers, cool rooms, all our stock. You know, we've got so much stock in there that's all in the loop. You know, we don't know what's going on with it now.
COVID, the 2022 floods, and now this. But he's not going down without a fight.
Do you think this could be the final blow?
Hell no.
We know that when it hits, it's going to hit a large area, and that means that we need to be prepared for everything.
Locals continued to do what they could to get ready. At Tweed Heads, shoppers ignored the emergency alarm inside Coles as the river at Murwillumbah continued to rise. This afternoon, it was a close call for beachgoers at Byron as large pine trees threatened to tumble. When the call was made, they had to act fast. A tree that stood for decades brought down in a matter of seconds. Alex Heinke, 9 News.
And Alex Heinke joins us now from Byron Bay. Alex, the wind is a huge concern where you are.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wind wildcard, Georgie, but it was council workers who played their hand first. As you've just seen, bringing down 2 damaged trees safely, and a third will be coming down only in a matter of minutes. And this is where it's all happening, the main park here at Byron Bay. They'll use guide ropes to bring the trees down safely, away from restaurants and away from hotels as well. Georgie, the risk was simply too great, and with wind like this, authorities didn't think these trees could last another night in Alfred's fury.
OK, Alex, thank you. Let's head now to Lismore, where we find James Wilson. And James, all eyes there are on the Wilsons River.
Georgie, and it's rising quickly. Take a look behind me. Parts of Lismore are already being inundated by water. And the message from emergency services is quite grim. This is the CBD behind me. It's almost inevitable now that that will be impacted overnight and into tomorrow morning as we reach major flooding levels. That levee, all eyes will be on it tomorrow morning as this rain intensifies. Cyclone Alfred is moving slowly, and that's bad news for Lismore. That rain band from the south of the system is dumping heavy falls right now. The worst of it overnight and into tomorrow morning. If the levee does spill over at around 10.7 metres, it's almost certain destruction for this town that's already been through so much. Here's how residents prepared today. Lismore on the brink.
Seek shelter, go to family and friends first. There are emergency evacuation centres that are located if there are no alternatives.
Slowly going under again. Scarred by 2022, Mal isn't taking any chances.
I'm about to leave. I don't want to get caught. I'm here by myself now.
While his neighbour Tiff and her family are staying put.
We're fine. We're just waiting to see what the rivers do.
In nearby Coracai, roads have already been swallowed, but it's not enough to spook locals yet.
Reasonably relaxed because I've had experience previously, but I'm just fatalistic. Whatever happens is going to happen.
Even though the town and neighbouring Kyogle and Woodburn could soon be isolated for days. Roof repairs called off, conditions too dangerous, forcing 2,000 SES volunteers onto the frontline response. In Lismore's main street, cafe owner Brendan is the last to pack up shop.
Got the equipment ready to go into trailers and floats and that sort of stuff, and it all just rolls out.
Shelves stripped bare before they close.
It's pretty bare. I was lucky to get some bread. They were pulling that out of the oven just as I got there.
Bloody terrible. No, nothing on the shelves. We want bread and milk and we can't get it anywhere.
Supplies are already stretched in evacuation centres, 150 people already sleeping there.
We may encourage people to bring their sleeping bags.
As the river levels rise tonight, all eyes will be on Lismore's levee wall. This is the last line of defence between the Wilsons River and the CBD. It topples at around 10.7 metres. Locals are praying that doesn't happen, but if it does, it will spell certain destruction for this town once again.
We do expect down around that Lismore area to top the levee sometime tomorrow at around that 11 metre mark.
In Lismore, James Wilson, 9 News.
Now to news just in, and a search is underway for a man swept into floodwaters near Coffs Harbour. Erin Ramsey joins us from the newsroom. Erin, what more can you tell us?
Well, Georgie, around 2:20 this afternoon, emergency services received a call from a remote bridge northeast of Dorrigo. This live camera showing that water level there rising rapidly today. Now, the caller said a four-wheel drive had been washed off the overpass and into floodwaters. The driver clung to a tree branch while local police maintained communication with him for some time, but just after 3 p.m, he was then swept under. Georgie, this area is not directly in Cyclone Alfred's ferocious path, but is experiencing heavy rainfall and flooding, making the search too dangerous for rescue crews to continue. Emergency services are tonight reminding drivers, if it's flooded, forget it.
Erin Ramsey, thank you. All right, let's now go to Belinda in the studio. Belle, where is Cyclone Alfred right now?
Good evening, Georgie. Let's get the latest information from the Bureau. Released about an hour ago, Tropical Cyclone Alfred still slowly moving towards the southeast Queensland coast, currently sitting about 115 kilometres east-southeast of Brisbane and travelling at around 7 kilometres per hour. A Category 2 right now, it's forecast to maintain this intensity as it approaches the coast, with conditions across northeastern New South Wales ramping up tonight. The Northern Rivers and mid-north coast getting another soaking today. Lismore receiving more than 200 millimetres over the past few days, about 140 in Byron and nearly 100 for Coffs. But the worst is yet to come, and Sydney could cop it too, with the chance of torrential rain. I'll have the latest forecast for you after sport, Georgie.
Thank you, Belle. We'll see you then. Well, if anyone knows the dangers of Cyclone Alfred, it's Aramis Moxksis. The Lithuanian rower was caught in the storm for 4 days while on a solo journey through the Pacific, describing it as hell on earth. Today, there was an emotional reunion with his wife in Sydney after 5 months at sea.
Back on dry land in the safe arms of his wife, Lithuanian adventure rower Aramis Moxksis, the first person caught up in Cyclone Alfred.
We have a saying in Lithuanian, Sveikas gyvas, to translate into English, health and alive. So he is health and alive.
The 44-year-old farewelled his family 5 months ago, setting out on a 12,000-kilometre odyssey from San Diego to Brisbane. He was 740 kilometres off the coast of Mackay last Friday when he was caught in the storm.
The boat was turning around many times.
Rolling maybe 30 times, like cat in washing machine.
Moxksis managed to send out a distress signal. He was spotted by aircraft the following day, but the conditions delayed the retrieval mission.
Conditions that ships normally wouldn't sail into often.
Rescue ship HMAS Tulis battling 16-metre swells.
To put it into perspective, a 45-degree roll, the ship wouldn't right itself.
After 4 days holding on for dear life, help arrived. Aramis says his original goal was to reach Sydney, just not quite like this, and it will be a while before he attempts the major feat again, which was all for Ukraine.
Lithuania stands together. Slava Ukraini! Geroyam slava!
At Gardner Island, Erin Ramsey, 9 News.
In the news ahead, continuing coverage of the impending cyclone emergency in our state's north. Plus, the latest on a shark attack in Sydney's south. A fresh charge for disgraced broadcaster Alan Jones. Also, shocking new details on a teenager who boarded a plane armed with a shotgun. And debris streaks through the Florida sky, the spectacular SpaceX sighting. Controversial broadcaster Alan Jones has been charged with an additional indecency offence, bringing the total number of alleged victims to 11. The 83-year-old is already facing multiple charges over alleged sexual touching incidents between 2001 and 2019. He has pleaded not guilty and will front Downing Centre local court next week. A woman has been attacked by a shark off Gardner Beach near Bundina in Sydney's south this afternoon. Locals say they've recently seen bull sharks in the area.
On a stretcher and surrounded, Mangyong Zhang wheeled into a rescue helicopter. Tonight, she is our state's latest victim of a shark attack.
It appears to have been a shark bite on the right leg, which was almost incapacitating for her. I don't know that she would have gotten out of the water by herself. So the good locals here were able to help her out.
A sunny Friday afternoon at Gardner Beach near Bundina in the Royal National Park. Manny was swimming close to the shore.
She felt a strike to the leg and then immediate excruciating pain.
Rescuers ran into the water and pulled her out, among them an off-duty paramedic.
I'm just thinking there's a shark still in that water, so that guy's a true hero.
Within minutes, more help had arrived before Manny was airlifted to St George Hospital.
It doesn't appear to be life-threatening at this stage, but further scans will reveal the full extent of the damage. Potentially permanent damage to that limb is what she's at risk at the moment.
The beach is not normally patrolled, and it didn't take long for people to jump right back in. Exactly what type of shark it was is yet to be confirmed, but locals here tell us there's been a number of recent bull shark sightings. They also say residents here know not to swim when the water is murky.
We're going into their home ground
So you have to be careful every time you go swimming.
In Bundina, Massilia Eileen, 9 News.
A farmer on his way to Sydney to watch a footy match has become a hero for foiling potential disaster on a Jetstar flight. He helped disarm a 17-year-old fellow passenger accused of taking guns and a fake explosive onto the plane.
Barry Clark received a hero's welcome as he landed in Sydney. Yesterday afternoon, the farmer had a 17-year-old's arm pinned behind his back after spotting the barrel of a shotgun in a tool bag carried onto his Jetstar flight.
You don't be scared. There's no such thing as scared in that position. If you're going to be scared, you don't start.
Barry, who was sitting in seat 1C, didn't hesitate, nor did the pilot, engineers or the cabin crew who dismantled the shotgun and carried it from the plane.
They're trained to do this, but it doesn't stop these efforts being heroic.
Charge sheets claim the 17-year-old had multiple firearms on him and fake explosives when he allegedly cut through the perimeter of Avalon Airport and travelled approximately 2 kilometres to get airside and board Jetstar flight JQ610 before it was due to depart for Sydney at 2:55 on Thursday afternoon.
This is a big lapse in airport security.
I believe we have robust security. The young person is in custody.
The teenager, who cannot be legally identified, did not apply for bail today, which means he'll spend at least the next 2 weeks behind bars until his next court appearance. It's his first time in custody, and his face flushed red as he appeared in the courtroom. He only spoke to confirm that he understood what was happening and the long list of charges against him. Avalon Airport's CEO was playing down the threat today, insisting that the airport is safe, open and ready to thank its saviour.
Barry is a hero. I think it's fair to say Barry's got free flights for life from Avalon Airport.
But Barry might just settle for a Swans win. Mark Santomartino, 9 News.
In the news ahead, our reporter joins us from Cleveland, east of Brisbane, where residents are battling Alfred on 2 fronts. All the details from an emergency summit in Brussels as Europe rallies around Ukraine. Plus, the Pope speaks. Hear the Pontiff's message to the faithful after 3 weeks in hospital. And Big Stink, the alleged source of a petrol headache plaguing residents in Prestons. Returning now to the cyclone emergency bearing down on parts of New South Wales and Queensland, our reporter Lily Greer is in Cleveland, in Brisbane's east. And Lily, residents there are on high alert.
They certainly are, Georgie. Residents, including my own family. I'm from this part of the world and I can tell you I have never seen sustained windy conditions here like this. You can certainly feel the cyclone is closing in. That wind and that rain has really intensified this afternoon. It is so unforgiving. And residents here this afternoon, they got text message after text message. Take shelter now. And that is exactly what they'll be doing tonight inside their sandbagged houses. The reason that they have sandbagged up to 2-3 days earlier than this is because they are so concerned about that storm surge, about Alfie hitting when the high tide is happening. And the latest tracking that's come out from the Bureau, it has it crossing over the Moreton Bay Islands around that 5 a.m. mark. 5 a.m. is when we're supposed to get high tide here. So there is a real worry tonight that when these residents wake up very early morning tomorrow to no doubt check what sort of damage is happening in front of them, there is a concern that water is going to be jumping from the ocean into their backyards and into their homes. In this part of the world, they've got beautiful, what's usually beautiful ocean views, but this evening, having the ocean so close to your home has never felt so menacing. They're going to have a front row seat to whatever destruction this cyclone brings.
You are all in our thoughts and we appreciate the update. Lily Greer, thank you. Residents at Prestons near Liverpool in Sydney have been living with the smell of petrol fumes in their homes for more than a week. Concerned for their health, they begged local authorities to do something about it. And finally, they believe they're getting some answers.
Right now, using the kitchen and the bathroom is literally a headache for Michael Angelkovic.
It's coming up through the toilet and the drains. The odours come through here.
The stench of petrol coming from the sewer system, leaving him and neighbours on Dalmeny Drive not just fuming, but feeling sick.
The smell is very overpowering, mostly at night. It just hits you in the face. Myself and my children have been suffering from respiratory issues. We've had to block off all our doors with duct tape. As far as I know, there's about 6 streets impacted at the moment.
Amid concerns too for the local environment.
Not far from here, a couple hundred metres away, there is a local water system. There's wildlife, there's birds, and there's even playing fields.
But finally, in the past 24 hours, some progress. Sydney Water identifying this petrol station on Camden Valley Way as the source of the problem. Today, the station closed. In a statement to 9 News, E.G. Ampol said Sydney Water has blocked off the connection between our service station and the sewer main. We're currently undertaking integrity testing of fuel lines and underground tanks, with results to be available next week, with work now underway to flush the sewer.
We do have some families where there's a thin line of film across their pools. We need to fix the short-term problem, but also look at remediation and compensation if necessary.
In Prestons, Elizabeth Bryan, 9 News.
Pope Francis has spoken for the first time since he was hospitalised with double pneumonia nearly 3 weeks ago. The pontiff's audio message was played to worshippers during a prayer service at the Vatican.
Agradezco de todo corazón las oraciones que hacen por mi salud desde la plaza.
The pontiff is still in a stable condition. There's concern for Australia's steel and aluminium sector, with President Trump saying there are no changes to his plans for tariffs, which start next week.
Can you walk us through the next steps on this? Steel and aluminum tariffs are due to kick in next week on Canada, Mexico, and every other country. Are those going to be modified as well?
No, those aren't modified. Those are happening next week.
Australia's been lobbying members of the President's Cabinet. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese says the government will continue to make its case. European leaders have come together to discuss boosting the region's defence in the wake of the US halting military support for Ukraine. Russia says it won't give in to anyone to end the war. President Trump thinks both sides will have no choice but to sign a peace deal.
Operation Rearm Europe. 80 years on from the end of the last World War, the leaders of 27 European countries banding together.
This is a watershed moment for Europe, and Ukraine is part of our European family.
A show of strength for Ukraine and its president, Volodymyr Zelensky, as the US pauses its military aid and sharing of intelligence.
We are very thankful that we are not alone, and these are not just words, we feel it.
The emergency summit held in Brussels discussing raising more than $1 trillion to boost Europe's defence.
It is about damn time to put, finally, our money where our mouth is.
France considering extending the protection of its nuclear arsenal to some of its neighbours to deter Russia. Vladimir Putin taking a swipe at the French president, saying there are still people who want to return to the times of Napoleon, forgetting how they ended.
It would be great if we could all denuclearize, because the power of nuclear weapons is crazy.
Putin says he won't give up anything he thinks belongs to Russia to end the war. But the US president knows something else.
Ukraine wants to make a deal because I don't think they have a choice. I also think that Russia wants to make a deal because in a certain different way that only I know, they have no choice either.
In Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown, 4 people were killed and dozens injured in a Russian strike. Talks between the US and Ukraine set to resume next week in Saudi Arabia, as Donald Trump plans a trip of his own soon.
Are you still thinking of going to Saudi Arabia and meeting with Putin about this?
I don't know. I can't tell you. I'm going to Saudi Arabia.
Hannah Sinclair, 9 News.
Billionaire Elon Musk's latest rocket launch has failed, exploding seconds after lifting off from Texas. SpaceX confirmed Starship 8 lost altitude and was spinning out of control before burning debris was seen streaking across the sky. Nearby flights into Miami and Orlando were paused as a result. Still to come tonight, life in the fast lane. Meet the baby born on a busy motorway. Also difficult decision, the major change coming to Vivid this year. And in sport with Roz, Wayne Bennett's back in the Rabbitohs coaches box.
He's back, Georgie, and what an opening round match for him. The super coach will guide his undermanned bunnies against his former club, the Dolphins, who have been dealing with their own hardship. Our preview next. Also, Sea Eagles coach Anthony Seibold drops a hint about Daly Cherry-Evans' future. How much longer will the skipper stick around? How recruits Clint Gutherson and Damien Cook have united the Dragons ahead of their season opener against the Bulldogs. And is this the end for Nick Kyrgios? The Aussie, inconsolable after injury, ruins his Indian Wells campaign.
And Tropical Cyclone Alfred set to cross the coast tomorrow. So how will it impact Sydney? I'll have the latest warnings and forecast for you shortly.
Wayne Bennett is back, returning to the South's coaches box after 3 seasons away. His first assignment, bringing down the Dolphins, a club he helped found. James Bracey joins us now. James, it's been a tough week for the Dolphins with the match transferred to Sydney due to the cyclone.
Yes, good evening to you, Ross. It has been a tough week for what is now the visiting team here tonight. Andrew Johnson's with me. Hello, Joey. A couple of players left behind for the Dolphins as well. How do you expect it to impact them out there tonight?
Yeah, it'll affect them a little bit, but on paper they're still really strong. It'll affect their depth, especially on the bench. But looking at them on paper, they're still really strong. I actually give the Dolphins a real chance of making the 8 this year, but it should be a really good game, fast track here.
The Wayne Bennett Cup, they're calling this one, the club he helped build, and he's back at South Sydney now. So much discussion about the loss of Latrell Mitchell, the loss of Cam Murray for extended periods. The good news for the Bunnies, though, Campbell Graham, his long-awaited return tonight.
It did not play at all last year, that cracked sternum, and then picked up an ankle injury in the off-season. But, yeah, so good to see him back. He was on the verge of state of origin there for a while, a couple of years ago. So, yeah, defensively really strong out wide, so I'm glad to see him back.
Up against it tonight, though, South?
I think it'll be a close one. I just think Dolphins can get there really tight one.
All right, thank you, Andrew. Looking forward to this one, Roz, of course, live and free on 9 from 7:30.
I think Joey stole your look there, Brace, but thank you. Bring it on. Well, he won't be playing tonight, obviously, but Cam Murray hasn't given up on returning this season after having surgery on a torn Achilles.
I know some boys have been back around 5.5 months, and so if I'm sort of tracking around that, then there is a chance.
Murray suffered the injury at training 2 weeks ago. Manly coach Anthony Seibold has hinted Daly Cherry-Evans has already made up his mind on whether or not he will retire at the end of the season. Seibold wouldn't reveal which way his skipper is leaning, but says he does want to make the most of whatever time he has left.
It's the question all Manly fans are asking. Will this season be Daly Cherry-Evans' last? The captain appears to have made his call.
I've had some conversations with Ches before we even got back. I've got a pretty strong understanding of what he wants to do without sharing that publicly.
For now, the Sea Eagles just want to enjoy what they have while they have it.
It's a really narrow focus on the present time and enjoying the opportunity to coach Ches now, because you don't get opportunities too often to coach the really, really elite ones.
Cherry-Evans sets the benchmark for NRL halves. One Matt Burton and Toby Sexton are hoping they can reach. Cameron Ciraldo's sticking with the young Bulldogs pair for round 1 after a strong finish to 2024.
Well, they're both under 25 and already NRL playmakers, so, you sort of look at the best playmakers in the comp and they're, mid to late 20s and on from that. So, those guys have got plenty to learn.
The Dogs face the Dragons first up. Shane Flanagan crediting recruits Clint Gutherson and Damien Cook for uniting his team.
The dynamic within the group is definitely changed, and that's probably because of the two captains. They've made sure that they're dialed in on that leadership piece and brought the group together.
Tomorrow's clash is at Cogra, but next year Canterbury and St George Illawarra are likely to play their season-opening match in Las Vegas.
A couple of coaches have said the lead up to the games, like a semi-final or a grand final, and for us to be a part of that in 12 months' time would be really cool.
Luke Dovesey, 9 News.
The Roosters concede they have a mountain of work to do following the club's biggest ever loss to the Broncos. The Chooks must defy history if they are to win this year's premiership after the 50-14 annihilation.
The Roosters in a world of pain after a devastating first-round defeat.
Just really disappointing.
No team has ever won the...
Or whatever, that's the beauty of it.
let's go.
Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do. We just got to stick tight and bunker down together, and it's a long year, so let's try and get after it.
In an otherwise forgettable night.
This is probably one of the highlights of my life so far, and just hopefully many more to come. Yeah.
Throughout the pre-season, and I guess the harder you work, the rewards come.
The Broncos given a police escort to Bankstown Airport ahead of a charter flight to Toowoomba, ensuring players and staff
want it tough, proud, giving them something to smile at. It's a pretty tough time at the moment. Us boys here, we're really thinking about you. Stay strong.
Zach Bailey, 9 News.
The AFL season begins tonight with the Swans up against Hawthorn at the SCG before the weekend's only other game on Sunday when the Giants host Collingwood. A fixture coach Adam Kingsley says can set the tone for their entire campaign.
Well, we're aspiring to be a really great defensive team. We're not that at the moment, but we have the capacity to be, I think, particularly with that back 6 or 7 behind the ball. So, they've just got to play their way.
Jesse Hogan was on umpire duties today, recovering from a bizarre off-field incident, breaking his thumb on the team bus's toilet door. A big hit to Ange Postecoglou's hopes of claiming silverware this season, Tottenham falling 1-0 to AZ Alkmaar in the opening leg of their Europa League tie. The winner was a first-half own goal in a performance that has heaped even more pressure on the Aussie manager. The return fixture is next week. And the tennis career of Nick Kyrgios is in doubt tonight after he was forced to retire in the first round of Indian Wells. Kyrgios was inconsolable after suffering pain in the wrist, which has given him so much trouble over the past 2 years. The Australian has played just 4 matches since October 2022, and at 30 years old, there are fears his body is too fragile to compete at the top level. Sport, it's cruel, Georgie.
It can be very cruel, Ros. Thank you. Still to come in tonight's news, we have breaking developments in northern New South Wales. Our reporter in Byron Bay has the latest. Also, why Sydney's skies won't be quite so bright at Vivid this year. And a dramatic entrance on a busy motorway, the baby girl whose arrival her parents will never forget. We have breaking developments in northern New South Wales where Cyclone Alfred is already wreaking havoc. Reporter Alex Heinke joins us from Byron Bay. And Alex, you have new details on evacuation orders there.
That's right, Georgie. 3 new evacuation orders, and this is only breaking in the last hour. One of them is in Port Macquarie. The other 2 are in areas near me, one in Condong, the other in the south ends of Murwillumbah. The advice for these locations is simple. You need to evacuate your home if it is safe to do so, and the window to do so is closing as well. 9 o'clock is the cutoff, so they have a little over 2 hours' time. Georgie, the advice is simple. If they do not evacuate by this time, if the worst does happen, if their homes are flooded, the authorities cannot guarantee their safety.
OK, Alex Heinke with the very latest there from Byron Bay. Thank you. Donald Trump's trade policies continue to send waves of anxiety across global share markets, including our own. But there was a lifeline for Star Entertainment, as Nine's money editor Effie Zahos explains.
What began as a Trump bump has turned into a slump. The president's tariffs flip-flopping is tanking markets, including our own. And since he came into office, the market's been all over the place. And in the last 3 weeks, over $230 billion has been wiped off the ASX. Weak banks, miners and ex-dividend stocks all added to the pain. And CBA led the bank losses as investors continue to sell off. And Tex-Mex was no comfort food, with Guzman and Gomez down. Star Entertainment is still in a trading halt, but it did do a deal to starve off collapse for at least a few months. It will sell its Queen's Wharf complex in Brisbane to its Hong Kong partner. And as for our Aussie dollar, well, it's down against all major currencies.
Thank you, Effie. A major drawcard of Sydney's popular Vivid Festival has been scrapped due to safety concerns. The drone show is cancelled, organisers citing the significant cost of crowd control.
It's Vivid's headline act.
Love is in the air.
The mesmerising fleet of drones, a major crowd pleaser during the 3-week festival. But the star attraction is now scrapped.
Unfortunately, we have had to make the difficult decision not to proceed with drones this year.
It's like one of the highlights of the whole play, so it would be a shame if they did scrap it.
Safety concerns heightened last year when thousands of people dispersed at the end of a show. A dangerous human traffic jam ensued at Circular Quay. Even paramedics struggled to get through. Barriers became choke points.
There was just heaps of people pushing through and people with prams and trolleys.
The organisers told by authorities last year's format unsustainable. Changes needed to be made to improve safety. Despite canvassing different options, the extra cost was considered too great.
We don't want to tip all of our money into those costs or into those measures. What we'd prefer to do is actually have a really successful event for 2025.
Organisers are promising festival goers that instead of the drones, there'll be more free events on offer this year. Further details will be revealed at a launch next week. A star of the show, shining bright 2 years in a row, now fallen. For those who are disappointed,
I say to them, tune in next week. Next week is the program launch.
Gabriella Rogers, 9 News.
King Charles will soon have a new role as a royal radio host, partnering with Apple to release the King's Music Room, a one-off broadcast where he'll look back at his favourite music over the decades.
So this is what I particularly wanted to share with you, songs which have brought me joy.
His Majesty has hinted the playlist will include Bob Marley, Grace Jones and our very own Kylie Minogue. It'll be released next week. They planned for a hospital birth, but Lydiana and David DeLay's baby girl made an entrance they'll never forget on Melbourne's busy CityLink road.
I was pushing myself off the seat.
Yeah. And she's like, Dave, the body's out, the baby's out. And I'm like, no, it's not. So I put my hand between her legs just to check, and there was nothing there. I go, Lyd, there's nothing there. And she's like, the baby's down my leg. 2 seconds later, I hear, wah! And that was it. I was like, oh my God, what the do I do?
Oh dear, with a ripped shirt for warmth and a midwife on speaker, David pulled off the ultimate roadside delivery. And tonight little Talia is cosy with her big sisters, oblivious to the wild ride that got her here. Good result. Coming up, Belinda with the weekend weather.
Thanks, Georgie. There's a 50% chance of more showers across Sydney this evening with the winds easing. Right now it's 23 degrees in the city and 24 in our west. Tropical Cyclone Alfred crossing the coast early tomorrow. I'll have the latest warnings for New South Wales next. Welcome back. First, let's take a look at Sydney's weather today. Partly cloudy skies with some fresh southeasterlies blowing in and bringing some showers. Camden recording the highest rainfall with 5 millimetres, but so far nothing for the city. Top temperature slightly cooler than average in our west, Penrith only making it to 25. The city officially reaching 27, but felt more like 23 thanks to those gusty winds. Now let's get the latest on Tropical Cyclone Alfred. This is the current position, now sitting about 105 kilometres east-southeast of Brisbane and still travelling around 7 kilometres per hour. The Northern River's getting another drenching today. Lismore receiving more than 200 millimetres over the past few days. The winds continuing to increase. Byron Bay once again clocking the maximum wind gust of the day, reaching 113 kilometres per hour this afternoon. Yamba recording its highest gust since 2016, whipping up to 95. And conditions ramping up tomorrow. At this stage, the Bureau expecting Alfred to make a coastal crossing at around 10 a.m. before dissipating on Sunday. The system bringing heavy to locally intense rainfall, flooding and damaging winds to northeastern New South Wales. Accumulated rainfalls of up to 700 millimetres can be expected in regions north of Port Macquarie into Monday morning. Then as the remnants of Alfred continue inland, the Hunter Valley could see falls between 150 to 200 between Sunday evening and Monday morning. There are major flood warnings in place for these rivers. In Lismore, the Wilsons River could top the levee by midday tomorrow. In Sydney tomorrow, we are in for a cloudy start to our weekend with a high chance of showers, most likely in the afternoon and evening, 0 to 5 millimetres forecast. Top temperatures much like today, tops around 26 or 27 in our west, and the city also heading for 27. Sunday, another shower or two. The Bureau now expecting that heavier rain to arrive on Monday with 5 to 60 millimetres in the city, then a further 2 to 35 on Tuesday, easing on Wednesday, and then finally finding up on Thursday. In our west, 28 with a shower or two on Sunday, then 8 to 90 millimetres on Monday and Tuesday. That's a big range, I know, but it just depends on what happens once Alfred crosses the coast tomorrow. So we'll wait and see, Georgie.
Some pretty wild times ahead. Thank you, Belle. And that is 9 News for this Friday. We'll have continued coverage on Cyclone Alfred in a special edition of 9's Late News from 10:30. I'm Georgie Gardner. Thanks for being with us. Good night.